Okay, let's dive right in. We are starting today with a riddle, really, a kind of historical impossibility.
We are.
We're talking about a manuscript called The Gate of RASHMON. It was supposedly written by the Japanese literary giant Ryūnosuke Akutagawa.
Who, of course, died by suicide way back in 1927.
Exactly, and that's where the problem starts.
It is, because the document itself, the physical object, it's completely authentic. The paper, the specific ink he used, his handwriting, experts have verified it. It's from 1927.
But the content is from the future.
It's from decades after his death. I mean, we're talking about incredibly specific things.
Like what?
Like the atomic bombing of Hiroshima in 1945, the social upheaval of the post-war occupation. He even describes a literary criticism about his own work that wouldn't be published until the 1960s.
It makes no sense. It defies linear time.
It absolutely does. And the translator, Professor Tanaka Kenji, he spent more than a decade on this. He tried to debunk it to find any rational explanation, a hoax maybe, some kind of weird predictive genius.
But something convinced him it was real. Or, at least, not a forgery.
Two things. Two tiny specific prophecies that are they're impossible to fake.
This is where it gets really strange, isn't it?
This is it. Akutagawa wrote down exactly when the manuscript would be discovered, 1952. He named the librarian who would find it, a man named Yoshida Hiroshi.
He named him.
By name. And he described the scene. He said the manuscript would be hidden inside a volume of Dostoevsky, and that Yoshida would mistake the Dostoevsky for a Bible and the manuscript itself for just another suicide note.
And that all happened.
To the letter. The precision of knowing the man's name, the date, even his private thoughts, that's what broke Professor Tanaka. You can't explain that away.
So you're left holding two contradictory truths.
Exactly. It's what Akutagawa in the manuscript calls the double vision. The artifact is from 1927. The content is from the 1960s.
Yeah.
You have to accept both.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to use that double vision to unpack his conscious crossing from life to death and see what this impossible document tells us about reality, art, and, well, what comes next.
To do that, we have to start with the phrase from his actual historical suicide note, the bakuzen to shitaflan.
Which translates to a vague unease.
Right. And for almost a century, that's been seen as a symptom, a product of his neurasthenia, his insomnia, his addiction to veronal.
The signs of a man breaking down.
But in this manuscript, he completely reframes it. He says the flan, the unease, it isn't an illness, it's a sign of perception changing. It's the feeling of what he calls the filter dissolving.
Okay, the filter. Let's unpack that. What is it?
The filter is essentially the survival mechanism of our consciousness. It's this incredibly complex system that forces our nervous system to perceive only one reality, one timeline.
So we can function.
Right.
So we can make a decision and act on it.
Precisely. If you saw every possibility at once, every timeline, you'd be paralyzed. The filter is what keeps us sane by showing us a single actionable world.
So the vague unease isn't madness setting in, it's clarity. It's the terrifying, overwhelming experience of seeing everything.
It's seeing infinity. He realizes that our singular reality is a necessary illusion. And the shock for him is that nothing ever really goes away. Nothing is singular. Everything is multiple, and it's all happening right now.
And he uses his garden to explain this, right?
Yeah.
Which seems like such a calm, controlled place to have this kind of breakdown.
Or breakthrough. The garden was his sanctuary, the one place he tried to keep in order. So when the filter fails, that ordered space becomes the perfect screen to project this multiplicity onto.
So what does he see?
He looks out his window in 1927. He sees the garden as it is then. A bit overgrown, weeds here and there. That's version 1. But then, right on top of it, he sees version 2. The garden in 1915 when he first moved in. Pristine, hopeful, everything perfectly manicured.
The past layered on the present.
But then it gets much stranger. He sees version 3, the garden in 1945 after the firebombing of Tokyo. It's just scorched earth, a burned out tree stump. He can feel the heat from the future.
My God.
And at the exact same time, version 4 appears. A mythological garden from a story he never got around to writing. A garden with fox spirits and a hidden gate to the land of the dead.
So, past, present, future, and fiction. All existing in the same spot at the same time.
Exactly. And faced with that, the idea of a conscious crossing of suicide, it stops being an act of despair. It becomes an act of maybe choosing which reality to step into.
This brings us to the central image in his work, doesn't it? The threshold. The gate. RASHMON itself, it's always been that boundary. City and wilderness, living and dead, Morality and survival, it's the place where those neat lines we draw just fall apart.
And he claims he was actually reporting on this, not inventing it, in his most famous story.
In Yabu no Naka, in a grove.
Right. The story with the 7 different testimonies about the samurai's death. The bandit, the wife, the dead samurai speaking through a medium. And critics have always said, it's about the subjectivity of truth. That you can never know what really happened because everyone's account is flawed.
But that's not what he's saying from the other side.
No. He's saying he was reporting a metaphysical fact. The testimonies weren't contradictory because people were lying or misremembering.
They were contradictory because they were all true.
They were all true. The event happened on multiple frequencies at once. The bandit's version was real. The wife's version was real. The samurai's version was real. The grove, he says, is a physical manifestation of the interval, the space between lives. He wasn't an inventor. He was a witness.
That changes everything about what it means to be a writer. And it also changes how we should read his other famous story, Kumo no Ito, the spider's thread.
It does. It really does. Most people know the story. The thief Kandeda is in hell. A single spider's thread is lowered to save him.
And he starts climbing. But when other sinners try to follow, he yells, "This is my thread, get off!" And it breaks.
And the simple moral is always, selfishness damns you. But in the manuscript, Akutagawa looks back and says, we missed the point. He says the thread could bear infinite weight. The other sinners didn't break it.
His words broke it.
His words, the selfish act of claiming ownership, of insisting on division. This is mine. That's what severed the connection to grace. Salvation isn't a reward you earn. It's a connection you participate in.
So the test wasn't about weight. It was about sharing existence itself.
A profound shift, isn't it? It moves it from a simple moral lesson to a statement about the metaphysical nature of reality.
Which it makes the price he paid for seeing these things even more tragic. This is where we have to talk about Jigoku-hen, the hell screen.
Ah, yes. The painter Yoshihide, the artist so obsessed with realism that he has to witness true suffering to paint it.
And he ends up sacrificing everything. His health, his sanity, even his own daughter. Watching her burn to death so he can capture the agony of hell perfectly.
And Akutagawa says, flat out, I became Yoshihide. He was watching his own life collapse, his family suffer, and a part of him, the writer's eye, was just taking notes.
But he makes a crucial distinction in the manuscript, doesn't he?
He does, and it's so important. He says the suffering wasn't the price he paid for the art, it was the necessary witness. The artist isn't the creator, the agent. The artist is an instrument, a seismograph recording tremors from the interval. The story comes through you, not from you.
And he gets confirmation of this from the dead.
As he's preparing to cross, yes. He describes these visits from the interval. He's guided by people he knew who had recently died. His mentor, Natsume Susek, is one of them.
And what does Saseki tell him?
The most important thing an artist could ever hear, the work continues. He explains that death is a transformation, not an end. It just changes the venue, the method. He's being welcomed into a new kind of creative community.
The library of all stories.
The library of all stories. It's just an incredible concept. An infinite non-linear library. It has every version of every book ever written or that could be written. The final draft and the first messy thoughts all existing together.
And he's welcomed there by Murasaki Hikibu, the author of The Tale of Genji.
She's one of the librarians, yes. And he joins this eternal writing workshop in what he calls the upper story of RASHMON. The dead write on pages that dissolve and reform. It sounds like an artist's paradise.
But there's a paradox.
There is. The perfect conditions, no deadlines, no editors, no suffering, infinite time. They're sterile. The work has no urgency. There's no resistance.
The struggle against the imperfect world was the fire. Without that friction, what do you push against?
Exactly. He mentions that the great painter Yoshihide, now in the upper story, hasn't created a single thing with the power of the original hell screen. Perfection is inert.
So what's the solution?
Collaboration. They find new purpose not in individual genius, but in working together to transmit things back to the world of the living. The art only matters if it can cross the gate again in the other direction.
Which brings us all the way back to this manuscript.
Back to the manuscript and back to the vague unease. He says that original suicide note was designed to fail. It was meant to be confusing, to resist a simple explanation. This manuscript is the full report.
And he can watch what happens after. He describes his own funeral.
He does. He sees his eldest son, Yasushi, and for a moment the boy seems to feel his presence. It's confirmation for him that the boundary is permeable.
But that observation post gets put to the ultimate test in 1945.
With Hiroshima, he witnesses the atomic bomb. And he calls it the kun that breaks history.
Explain that. A kun is a Zen riddle meant to break your rational mind.
Right, because Hiroshima is an event so vast, so sudden, so traumatic, it doesn't just kill people. He says it physically ruptures the interval itself. The sudden influx of millions of confused, traumatized souls sends a shockwave through the afterlife.
And that gives him a new purpose.
An immediate one. He realizes his work isn't about art anymore, it's about service. He was needed on the other side. He becomes a guide, a bodhisattva for the dead of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, helping them navigate this sudden traumatic crossing.
His own conscious crossing in 1927 was, in a way, just practice.
Preparation for a service he never knew he'd have to perform.
So this all synthesizes into the final, incredible takeaway of the whole manuscript.
The gate opens both ways.
Death is a transition, not an ending.
The boundary is permeable. The dead are watching. They're working. They are trying to transmit, to guide.
So every time you read a work like this, you are, in a sense, crossing from our world into the interval. You're being asked to accept its logic.
And every act of true creation is a transmission from their world to ours. Consciousness persists. The community is there, waiting, hoping to influence us for the better.
Which leaves you, the listener, with the core uncertainty. The riddle we started with, is the Gate of RASHMON just a brilliant piece of psychological fiction, a masterful hoax?
Or is it exactly what it claims to be? A report from the space between lives?
And the challenge is not to solve it.
No. The challenge is to hold the contradiction, to accept the double vision. The work continues, the library grows. And you are already participating, already crossing back and forth in the small crossings that prepare you for the final one. Welcome home.